I am Dean Paul Rose. I welcome you to the annual Barristers Golden Circle Brunch. The Golden Circle Brunch celebrates the achievements of those who graduated 50 years ago. So today, we celebrate, of course, the class of 1974, our newest members of the Circle. I'm excited to be here for my first Golden Circle Brunch as the new dean. I look forward to celebrating our alumni's great achievements and reflecting on how far you all have come in the past 50 years. We will get into some of those achievements shortly, but for just a few moments, let's go back in time to 1974. I hope that it's a surprise for you to hear that I was around in 1974. I was only 3 years old, but I was around in 1974. And many of you were either young practicing attorneys, you just maybe passed the bar exam. The building that we're in today, Gund Hall, had only been open for about 3 years. So law school, no? What's that? Ah, okay. So in this building, maybe for 1 year? 2 years. All right, good. 2 years. Okay. So just as another point of comparison, law school cost for you about $2,100 a year. I don't even know if I want to say how much it costs now, but yeah, pretty close. We were at 61,000 this year, and so not like it used to be. Law school wasn't the only thing that was cheaper back then. So a first class stamp was 10 cents. A loaf of bread was about 28 cents. A gallon of whole milk costs $1.39. Milk's one of the things that hasn't gone up too much in time. Bacon certainly has. It was only 99 cents a pound back then. Eggs were 58 cents a dozen. You could get a brand new AMC Gremlin for about $2,400. If you couldn't afford a Gremlin, you could get a used Dodge Dart for about $1,200. The Ford Pinto was the best-selling American car in 1974. The World Trade Center, the tallest building in the world at the time at 110 stories, opened for business in New York City, all the tallest buildings, in 1974. And just to go back to the fashion back then, so people wore bell-bottom pants in denim and corduroy. I mean, some of us were still wearing those even into the 80s, actually, when it was really not fashionable to be wearing those. But, you know, if your older siblings wore those, then that's kind of what you wore. The shirts were very colorful, plaid, paisley, tie-dye, patchwork prints, platform shoes, hush puppies, some big hair back in the day, longer hair, and mutton chops were not an unusual thing even for law students. 1974 was a good year for entertainment. I think we'll all remember All in the Family that I grew up watching. Sanford and Son, Chico and the Man. One of my favorite movies came out in 1974. Blazing Saddles was 1974. Towering Inferno came out in 1974, and The Trial of Billy Jack. Kids, of course, will remember, and I was a kid in the 70s, so popular toys in 1974, Play-Doh, of course. Barbie had been around, but of course Barbie clothes were still really popular. Plastic hobby kits, RBC's Puff Basketball, Silly Putty. Those were some of the kids' entertainments. For adults, the Cleveland Indians hosted 10-cent beer night. I think maybe it's $10 beer night now. But one of those nights they had to forfeit the game to the Texas Rangers because of drunken and unruly fans, which never happens in Cleveland anymore. That was a thing of the past for sure. Muhammad Ali regained the world heavyweight title from George Foreman in the Rumble in the Jungle in 1974. Anyone remember who won the Super Bowl that year? It's behind you. Dolphins. And the Knicks won the NBA championship. The Oakland Athletics won the World Series that year. Well, so let's actually move to another great thing that happened in 1974 when you all graduated, or most of you graduated from law school. And as we get into that, I want to first thank the class of 1974 reunion advisory committee members, Alan Petrov, John Pyle, Lee and Marjorie Coused, Joanne Francis Landfair, Andrew Cohn, Jim Kimbler, and Doug Court. The committee has been active. Yes, please give them a round of applause. They've been really active in encouraging participation in reunion events, and we are really grateful for their work as a committee and their confidence in Case Western Reserve University School of Law. So thank you again. Before we honor the members of the class of 1974 who are with us today, there's much to celebrate about the law school in 2024. So let me give you just a few minutes of updates about what is happening at the law school. So in appreciation of many of you here today, the law school had one of its best fundraising years in its long history. We had an attainment of 11.6 million, which was a 50% increase from the previous year. That was really thanks to our great development team, of course, our alumni and our donors, and Dean Scharf and Dean Berg. The cash that came in was nearly 9 million for fiscal year 2024. And of course, we're really grateful for the generosity and support we receive from our donors, our alums, and the legal community. Our entering class this fall has 198 first-year JD students, but that number's a little bit deceptive because we had 166 that were in-person students, and then we just started this fall a part-time online program where we had 32 students. The median LSAT was 160 for the in-person students, 161 for the online students. The median GPA was 3.7 and 3.62 respectively. The class is 54% women. And yeah. And really quite remarkably, and a testament to the work of our admissions team, the class was made up of 31% students of underrepresented minorities. We have had a strong faculty for decades and decades. We continue to have a really strong faculty. The way that you can measure that is by looking at how much their law review articles are cited, for example. So there's a study that has been going on for a few years called the CISC Leiter study, named after the professors who work on that. Our faculty ranked 43rd in the country, which is really a testament to their contributions in legal scholarship. We continue to be a leader in experiential education. 10 clinics. Our students are out there before they graduate doing real legal work for real clients, and they are hitting the ground running. We are a leader in health law. Our business law program is one of the strongest. I think it's one of the strongest in the Midwest. I say that perhaps a little immodestly, as a business law professor, but I think it's a fantastic program, and we've long had strength in international law as well. So I'm really proud to be a part of this community, and we have a lot of things to be proud of at the School of Law. I look forward to getting to know you all better and continuing to grow the School of Law. So as we move to talk about some of your achievements and the class of 74 specifically, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the members of the class and all other members of the circle who have passed away. Their names are listed on the slide behind me. We have names from the class also up here on this placard. So let's briefly pause for a moment of silence to remember them. Thank you. So now we'd like to move to the induction segment of the program. So when your name is called, please come up to the podium and I can present you with a barrister certificate, a pin, and we'll take a quick photo. And as a special feature, a distinguished member of the class of 74 will join us to reflect on their law school experiences, to share some memorable moments. So today we warmly welcome the Honorable James L. Kimbler as our first inductee. Judge Kimbler served as an active judge from February 10th, 1986, when he was appointed to the Wadsworth Municipal Court bench, to December 31st, 2014, when he retired from the Medina County Court of Common Pleas, General Division. During his tenure, and this is some remarkable stuff, Judge Kimbler tried over 530 jury trials and has had more than 50 opinions published by the Ohio Supreme Court. He is married to Medina County Common Pleas Judge Joyce V. Kimbler. They have 3 children and 3 grandchildren. So let's welcome Judge Kimbler. We'll get it. Yeah.
When I was first asked if I would do this, I thought I may not be the best choice, because unlike a lot of people who are here today, academically I did have my challenges in law school. But I probably, so what I always say about my law school career is that the good news is I rose significantly in class rank over the 3 years I was here. The bad news is I started pretty near the bottom. And when you always get up to make a speech, I had to remember one time when I had a lawyer in front of me for a one-day jury trial, and he liked to talk a lot. And so we had this one-day jury trial, and at the end of we're in chambers going over the instructions, and he says, "Judge, how much time do I have for the closing argument?" And I said, "Richard, you will have 20 minutes. He looked at me concerned, he goes, "Judge, that's not enough time." I said, "Richard, it's a one-day jury trial. How much time do you think you should have?" He goes, "I think I need an hour." I said, "Richard, the greatest speech in the American continent, the American political experience, was Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. It took about 2.5 minutes. I realize that you're not Abraham Lincoln, but I'm giving you 10 times as long. I think that would be sufficient." And he actually did 20 minutes and won the case. So that's what happened there. I am going to take my own advice, and hopefully I'll be done in a few minutes. When I reflect back on my law school career before I came up here, I don't remember the building. I don't remember how being in this nice facility. What I remember are the people who I interact with in my law school class, and some of the faculty members we had, both good and bad, in the sense of good experiences and bad experiences. I remember, for example, one time when Andrew Cohen asked me to play tennis, and I thought I knew how to play tennis until I went on the court with Andrew, and his first serve I never saw. I heard it banging against the fence, and he's moving over, and he's looking at me, and I'm thinking, was that a serve or what? I remember one Christmas, my first year, when Byron Wallace was kind enough to join myself and my then wife Susan in our very small apartment off of Murray Hill. I remember John Mulligan, who I worked with after our second year of law school. He and I both worked at the Murray firm. And there was a man, and there was a male student named John, and I'm trying to think of his last name, who had a dog. And the dog went through graduation ceremony with us. Does anybody remember who I'm talking about? He was from Philadelphia. His first name was John, I think. Anyway, one time I was looking over an exam for contracts. I was looking at an old exam that Professor Austin had given. And I started laughing because they had humorous in it. And John looked at me and he said, "Jim, never do that." I said, "What?" He said, "Never laugh." I said, "Never laugh, John?" He goes, "Never laugh." I said, "Why?" He says, "That's when they get you. When you're laughing, they get you." So, and I remember some of the professors, Professor Jacoby, butchering the first day of butchering students because we had failed to read the assignment, and several students dropped out after that week. I remember Joe Howe gave a hearsay exam and evidence, or gave an evidence exam, had 23 exceptions to the hearsay rule in the last problem. And Dave Duff, who was a very good student, very good classmate of ours, graduate Order of the Coif, he always looked at his exams afterwards. I never did. And he went over, and I had gone out at the 17th exception. There was apparently 6 more after that were all valid. And Joe Howe had written on the exam, "Mr. Duff, so close yet so far." Or one time, Art Austin, he gave a midterm in contracts, and I knew nothing about contracts in the midterm. And so I got the Calamari book on contracts and read it 6 times in one semester. When I went up to get my grade, Professor Austin saw me and he said, "Can I speak to you a minute, Mr. Kimbler?" And I thought, this is not going to be good news. This is not going to be good news. And I said, "Well, what can I do for you?" And he said, "You know, I consider you one of my success stories this semester." And I thought, well, that's interesting. I said, "Why would that be?" He said, "Mr. Kimbler, at the halfway mark, you knew nothing about contracts, nothing. And yet you stuck with me, you took notes, you came to class every day, and you did very well in the exam." And I thought to myself, well, I could tell him this because I read Calamari 6 times, but I may have to see him again. So I said, "Thank you," and got out of there. So this is what I want to leave you with. I have been given the opportunity to help the people of Ohio do justice. And I have seen juries do justice. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that juries never make mistakes, because any institution born of humans will make a mistake. But I will tell you that I think juries most generally get it right. And they don't do this because we give them a lot of money, and they don't do this because they get prestige. They do this because they know it's the right thing to do. Now, where lawyers come in is trial lawyers take it upon themselves to speak for those who at that moment in time cannot speak for themselves. Because I don't care how smart you are, I don't care how much you think you know, when you're sitting as a litigant in a jury trial, you are scared, you are nervous, you're worried, and sometimes the only person in that courtroom who will stand up with you is your trial attorney. Not your family, sometimes not your friends, but one attorney perhaps, 2 at the most probably, trying to do the best they can to advocate for you. That is an occupation that is worthy of respect. And that is the opportunity I have had to see those lawyers at work. And without this law school, I would not have had that opportunity. So I thank this law school for that. I thank the faculty who educated me, as much as sometimes I didn't like it. And I thank the classmates who made my experience in law school tolerable. When I look back at law school, the negative experiences I had were perhaps in class. I have no bad memories of interacting with my fellow students, and I have a lot of good ones. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Judge Kimbler, for those great remarks. So our next inductee is Jerry Boswell. So after graduating from law school, Jerry worked in the Public Defender Division of the Columbus Legal Aid Society. Jerry then ventured into private practice in his hometown of Steubenville, Ohio, where he still resides. Do we have Jerry here? Okay, Jerry, come on up. Our next inductee is Stephen Collette. Stephen practiced law with Corman Jackson in Cleveland for 10 years. He also clerked with them for 1 year while in law school. In April 1984, Stephen took a position as general counsel for Pubco Corporation. He worked at Pubco and its subsidiaries for 40 years. He just retired April 2024, but still does consulting for them. He's been married to Deborah for 52 years. They reside in Shaker Heights. Yeah. They have 2 children, Lauren, who lives in San Francisco, where I practice actually, and Daniel, who lives with his wife and 2 children in Los Angeles, where I was born. So thank you, Stephen. Our next inductee is Mark Katz. So Mark started his career with a 10-year stay as a trial attorney with the U.S. Department of Labor. While at the DOL, Mark's first federal court trial landed in the U.S. Supreme Court, where the department won a 9-0 decision. Following that, Mark served as assistant general counsel for LTV Steel, a major steel manufacturer, for 13 years. Then he joined Ulmer and Byrne, where he was a partner for 22 years before retiring in 2020. Mark and his wife Debbie reside in Solon, Ohio. They have 2 children and 2 grandchildren. Thank you. Thank you. Our next inductee is Andrew Cohn. Andrew retired after 35 years with Hyatt Legal Plans, where he was vice president of operations and general counsel. Upon retirement, Andrew was interested in 3 activities: going back to school at Case Western as a senior auditor, getting involved with the startup community in Cleveland, and voting rights through voter registration and advocacy. Andrew and his wife Joan live in the University Circle area of Cleveland and both enjoy working out and traveling. Our next inductee is Douglas Court. Douglas served as an Air Force judge advocate for 26 years. Tour of duty locations include Florida, Washington, D.C., England, San Antonio, California, Hawaii, and Okinawa. Most of his jobs focus on military justice and international law. He was the Chief of Air Force Appellate Defense during his last assignment. He retired as a colonel in January 2001. Thereafter, he was a Master Commissioner at the Supreme Court of Ohio, where he reviewed death penalty appeals and related post-conviction actions. He retired from the court in March 2023. Douglas and his wife reside in Worthington. Our next inductee is Lee Kuset. Lee knew he wanted to be a lawyer at an early age and pursued a political science degree at Miami University, where he met his future wife, Marge. Your story is great. He'd already decided to attend Case Western Law School, and since the two had agreed they no longer wished to date others, Marge chose to follow him to the Case Western Reserve University School of Law. They got engaged in the law library while studying for first-year fall exams. When Akron Law School hired Marge to assist its criminal law clinic, Lee followed his dream of opening a people-oriented private practice in downtown Cleveland. He joined with fellow alumnus Bob Stoddard from the class of '73, and they practiced together for 31 years until Bob died in 2009. Lee also served 17 years as an acting judge, 11 years as a part-time prosecutor in South Euclid, where he and Marge reside. Lee retired from the Stoddard and Kuset practice in 2017, and he then volunteered with Legal Aid pre-COVID.
Just like a brush. Thank you.
So, of course, that leads us to our next inductee, Marjorie M. Kuset. So, Marge is the Eileen McMurray Tressler Professor Emerita at the University of Akron School of Law. Her writing focuses on death penalty litigation issues. She has taught criminal law, constitutional criminal procedure, and seminars in criminal process and capital punishment litigation. She was the first female teaching faculty member to be tenured and is the longest serving faculty member at the law school. I think that that's pretty awesome. And she has also served as a visiting professor here at Case Western and at Cleveland Marshall. Marge and Lee reside in South Euclid, and she also serves as president of the South Euclid Garden Club.
I forgot to put that in.
Yeah.
She sent it to me.
She saw this.
You made it. Thank you.
All right. Our next inductee is the Honorable Joanne Frances Landfair. So after joining the Ohio Bar in 1974, Judge Landfair worked in Washington, D.C. and Cincinnati before joining the Arizona Bar in 1983. In Arizona, she served as a deputy Maricopa County attorney until 1988. Her next move was to private practice, handling cases in criminal, juvenile, and probate courts. Judge Landfair served on the Criminal Justice Act panel from 1990 to 2019. handling major crimes in Indian country, including bank robberies, computer offenses, large drug conspiracy cases, and immigration cases. In 2019, she changed her Arizona bar status to judicial and became involved in Arizona and Italian independent film as an actress, editor, production assistant, and subtitler. Her daughter and son-in-law have 2 children in high school. Both are on track to become engineers. Our next inductee is Arthur Pierce Leary. Pierce retired as a captain in the U.S. Navy JAG Corps. He served 3.5 years of active duty and 22.5 years of reserve duty. He worked in private practice for 41 years and served on the Chagrin Falls Board of Education for 20 years. Pierce and his wife Jill have been married for 52 years and reside in Chagrin Falls, Ohio. Not here today, but we will make sure he gets his plaque. Our next inductee is John Mulligan. John entered Case Western School of Law in the fall of 1971, just as I was entering the world around that time, after spending 3 years on active duty in the U.S. Navy. After graduation, he joined the firm then known as McDonald, Hopkins and Hardy, where he spent the next 43 years. Most of his practice involved healthcare law. He currently volunteers as a lawyer for the Cleveland Legal Aid Society and is the board chairman of a local skilled nursing and assisted living facility. For the past 15 years, he has been an adjunct professor here at the School of Law in the LEAP 3 program, which is basically our skills program. John and his wife Mary live in Shaker Heights, Ohio. They have 4 married children and 12 grandchildren. Our next inductee is David O'Laughlin. Until David retired in 2012, he spent most of his career as a corporate attorney at Eaton Corporation in Cleveland. His responsibilities at Eaton included subjects near and dear to my heart, if these can be near and dear to anyone's hearts: securities regulation, corporate governance, business acquisitions and divestitures, public and private debt, and equity financings and employee benefits compliance. David and his wife Karen are residents of Naples, Florida, but spend their summers here in Cleveland. Our next inductee is John Pyle. John was a partner at Gold & Pyle, which was formerly Gold, Rotatory, and Schwartz. He was there for 35 years and a Knox County, Ohio public defender for 6 years. He's a veteran of the Vietnam War. He served as a specialist E5 in the U.S. Army. John is a member of the law school's prestigious Society of Benchers, was president of the Law Alumni Association Board of Governors as well from 1989 to 1991. John and his wife Judy reside in Worcester. Our next inductee is John Rayson. What's that? What an entrance. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. So John spent 10 years in the Florida House of Representatives and later served as the first mayor at large for the city of Pompano Beach. He served as the town attorney for 12 years for the town of Davie, Florida, where he currently serves as a special magistrate. He also spent the last 8 years in the ABA House of Delegates, trying to uphold the rule of law in these tempestuous times. John and his wife, Kathy, live in Pompano Beach, and they will celebrate their 49th wedding anniversary on May 1st, 2025. They have 4 grown children, and they have 5 grandchildren. All right. All right, so our next inductee is Edward Frank Siegel. After law school, Edward remained in Cleveland for almost 40 years, cycling through many different phases of the practice of law, including in-house, law firm, big law, and small firm, solo practitioner, basically hitting all the different kinds of practices. Head of a small firm as well. He retired in 2011 after a major bicycle accident. Edward left Cleveland and spent over 12 years traveling throughout the Americas. During the COVID-19 lockdown, he lived in Medellin, Colombia. In 2022, he discovered one of the most rewarding jobs of his professional life. He was a volunteer you did volunteer immigration work at the Texas-Mexico border. He actually saved a man's life when he was about to be returned to Mexico, where 2 cartels were waiting for him. One of Edward's finest experiences was volunteering at Refugee and Immigration Services Northwest in Everett, Washington, where he assisted Ukrainian refugees in completing their immigration forms. Edward lives in Beechwood, Ohio, near his 3 children, a doctor, a lawyer, a startup entrepreneur. He enjoys being a docent at Cleveland's Baseball Heritage Museum, helping to preserve and present the history of diversity in baseball. All right, our next inductee is Lawrence Sykes. Lawrence has been engaged in the private practice of law for over 30 years. His practice areas include litigation, real estate, and municipal law. He's admitted to the New York State Bar and United States courts in the northern, eastern, and southern districts of New York. Lawrence and his wife Joyce reside in Yonkers, New York. They have 4 children and 2 grandchildren. Our next inductee is R. Byron Wallace. So in 1968, with college degree in hand, Byron came to Cleveland as part of a Ford Foundation sponsored inner city teacher training program. It's also where he met his future wife, Jan, or as she likes to describe herself, the only real measure of success Byron's activities have given us over the last 60 or so years. After the Ford Foundation program ended in 1971, Byron enrolled in the law school. He got married after the first year. He did a summer clerkship at Baker and Hostetler after the second year, and he went to work for the firm after graduation, made partner a few years later, and spent the next 30 years or so there practicing employee benefits law. When he clerked at the firm in 1973, the firm had one office, just over 100 lawyers. Today, 17 offices, over 1,000 lawyers. And as for the part of all this that really matters, he and Jan married in 1972. They moved to Shaker Heights shortly thereafter. They were blessed with 3 children, who in turn gave them 5 remarkable grandchildren. Whoever said that if I'd have known having grandchildren was so much fun, I would have had them first, may have struggled with biology, but the sentiment is certainly correct. And I have to tell you, I have one child that is married, been married only, he's 26, only been married for about a year. Another daughter who's 28, who's about to be married. And every conversation with my son, who's 26, my wife is always saying, "What are you guys doing? What's going on here? Like, the clock's ticking. Come on, let's go. We want grandkids." That poor kid gets at every conversation. Our next inductee is Fred Wendell. After graduating from the School of Law in 1974, Fred began a 50-year career in plaintiff's personal injury, medical malpractice, and wrongful death litigation. He spent 37 years with the law firm Stewart and Dechant. Dechant, am I saying that right? Dechant. Okay, all right. Since then, he's been a solo practitioner in Chagrin Falls, Ohio. His proudest moments, and I heard a little bit about some of these last night, have been playing softball in the Lawyers League with the renowned team Ohio Miscellaneous. Yeah, which he said was under the astute leadership and captaincy of classmate Stephen Collette and joined by many class of 1974 classmates. Fred and his wife Cindy reside in Chagrin Falls, Ohio. Our final inductee is Michael Westerhouse. Michael worked for the Wegman Hessler law firm for about 2 years. Then he became self-employed. He started Appraisers Title Company and practiced mostly real estate law and some general and criminal law. About 10 years ago, Michael moved to Las Vegas, and he was telling us yesterday how great it is. They should pay him for his services and trying to get people to move to Vegas. He moved to Vegas to be near his son. He does some practice remotely. Before COVID, he traveled quite a bit for work, but he says he's now trying to quit. Michael and his wife, Virginia, have 2 children, a boy and a girl. All right, well, thank you all so much for welcoming the class of 1974 into the circle. If we could have another round of applause for our inductees.